humanitarian pauses. We're engaged with the Israelis on the particular practicalities of that. One critical aspect, though, is seeing progress on hostages. That's something we're intensely focused on, but we also believe that a pause could help advance that proposition as well.
All right, so in our spotlight, America's top diplomat, as you saw there, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken in Turkey, wrapping up talks in that region in an attempt to keep the Israel-Hamas war from escalating. This as the White House says that President Biden spoke again with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today about the possibility of what they call now a tactical pause in strikes in Gaza to help civilians reach some safer locations and allow for more humanitarian aid. Also, it's a push for the release of more hostages. In the meantime, Israeli forces pushing further into Gaza. An IDF spokesperson telling ABC News their troops are destroying the tunnels used by Hamas. So I want to bring back our panel here. ABC News contributor and SiriusXM radio host Mike Muse, ABC News contributor and national security and defense analyst Mick Mulroy, former Republican congressman and ABC News contributor John Katko, and president of Next Gen America Christina Sinsoon Ramirez. And Mick, I want to start with you here and share with you as well that our World News Tonight anchor David Muir also spoke with Benjamin Netanyahu today, and the full interview will be airing later, but part of what he said, Netanyahu did, is that there will be no ceasefire, no general ceasefire in Gaza without the release of our hostages. Mick, we've heard him say similar things to that effect over these past few days. And the question, Mick, is that now that the IDF is really so far into Gaza, are they more vulnerable if, say, a humanitarian pause or a ceasefire were to happen?
So, Kana, yes, they are. From a military perspective, a ceasefire, especially one that would require them to withdraw, would put a lot of danger to those troops, especially if it didn't hold and they have to go back in. However, the pause, if it was a pause from airstrikes, that could definitely happen, and it needs to happen so that we can get civilians out of the combat area, especially in Gaza City, to the south. And I think that's very plausible, and it certainly is logical that they would also take that time to get hostages out, third country nationals out, and get humanitarian assistance in. But that is plausible.
Okay, and Christina, to you, today, Iranian president and the Iraqi prime minister also called for a ceasefire in Gaza. Here at home, there are growing calls as well for a ceasefire. Also, Illinois Democratic Senator Dick Durbin being the first senator to call for a pause there. And what was the response to that?
Well, you know, we've seen the largest protests in U.S. history take place this past week. What I first want to honor is the massive humanitarian crisis we are seeing. We are having hospitals reporting of conducting brain surgery, amputations on children, all without anesthesia. You're talking about close to 2 million people not having clean drinking water, basic supplies for food. It is a deplorable situation for the people of Palestine, civilians, and 4,000 children that have been killed. So you are seeing a growing call for a ceasefire from progressive congressional representatives and now Dick Durbin, who has shifted a little bit in his position. But we are seeing some of the largest protests we've seen, not just here in the United States, but around the world around this cause, calling for a ceasefire now.
And John, to you, Blinken also recently, he went to Iraq and Jordan and Turkey, and he's having these face-to-face meetings trying to contain this war. How far does that go, those face-to-face meetings?
I don't think there's any substitute for face-to-face meetings. What he's done is he's kept the genie in a bottle with respect to another front opening up in this war with Hezbollah, and that in and of itself is a very big win for him. But there's no substitute for talking to the individuals and all the different players. And there's a lot of different players. And sometimes they just need to vent. Sometimes they need to tell you what they're thinking. And it's a multifaceted game. And he is doing a pretty good job of trying to keep a lid on things.
And Mike, I want to share a little bit more of what Netanyahu told David Muir. He says, as far as tactical little pauses, an hour here or an hour there, we've had them before. I suppose I'll check the circumstances in order to enable goods, humanitarian goods, or our hostages, individual hostages, to leave. But again, so he's talking about these little pauses there, Mike, but he says no to a general ceasefire.
Yeah, President Netanyahu is showing no willingness to compromise when it comes to a ceasefire. The challenge is if you do a little bit at a time, that is still a logistical challenge, even to get humanitarian aid workers into these hostile conflict areas. The challenge with Secretary Blinken that I don't think they're really talking about enough is typically the public gets a chance to respond to the efforts of diplomats. But I think what we're seeing in a very unusual way is that we're seeing social media actually getting ahead of diplomacy by the images that we're seeing of all the individuals, the Palestinian people being impacted by Israel's onslaught of attacks. As Secretary Blinken, asked them to engage in restraint when it comes to how they are pursuing this ground offensive. And so it's putting Blinken in a very challenging position.
And he's certainly out there doing it. Mike, Mick, John, and Christina, thank you very much. And please stick around.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.